For more on this summit, let's turn to Sourabh Gupta here in Washington. He's a senior Asia-Pacific International Relations Policy Specialist at the Institute for China-America Studies. Sourabh, I got to ask you about the Iran-Israel conflict. How much of that do you think is playing into this summit, considering this is Iran's backyard? Turkmenistan shares a border with Iran.
I think there are worries that the conflict might get, of course, it has already gotten out of hand. I mean, we're having strikes on nuclear facilities. It can have an impact on oil markets. And yes, as you mentioned, Iran is a player also in Central Asia. Remember, Iran is also going to be part of BRICS, et cetera, et cetera. So these obviously have implications for how both China views the conflict and how the Central Asian countries view it. I think at this point of time, they're hoping that better sense will prevail and that it will be contained, and that there will be conversations between the United States and Iran with regard to some sort of a civil nuclear agreement. But I think there are worries, but I don't think they have that much capability to really impact matters, developments on the ground right now.
Well, let's talk about China's relationship with Central Asia. They've had good economic relationship for a while now. What will you be looking for at this gathering?
Well, China frames its relationship with Central Asia in a very comprehensive way. It is the one region in which all countries of the region are China's strategic partners. China has settled boundaries with all of them, and that has really allowed economic cooperation, particularly, to flourish. Remember, Kazakhstan is close to President Xi's heart. That's where he had laid out his Belt and Road Initiative back in 2013. Where I think some of the action, particularly with regard to China-Kazakh relations, that's going to happen is going to be in the minerals space. Kazakhstan has been this great font of oil and gas extraction, mostly by Western companies, but also flowing eastwards. But Kazakhstan is rich in minerals too. And particularly over the last few years, China has been involved in minerals in the area of copper, in the area of tungsten. Many of these are important minerals in the areas of green industries, et cetera, et cetera. Kazakhstan has wanted not just extractive industries, but also value addition, value processing to be done on its soil. I think China will be ready and happy to do so. It has done that same model of value addition for Indonesia. And so I think this is one area where there's going to be movement, particularly given the fact that we are in this day and age and time of cooperation in green technologies and green sectors, and Kazakhstan has many of those minerals which are critical to this area of cooperation.
So, Sourabh, moving beyond just Kazakhstan in the Central Asian region, why is this area so important for China?
Central Asia is a neighbor. You want to have good relations with all your neighbors, east, west, to the north, to the south, and then radiate that outwards. That is what good diplomacy is about. In certain parts of the world, China does continue to, with some of its neighbors, continue to have certain problems. But with Kazakhstan, I mean with Central Asia, this is a victory of diplomacy that has not been won easily. It has taken a lot of effort. And now that the countries have been able to consolidate their relationship, not only can there be that flowering of connectivity and economic corridors and economic cooperation, but in critical other areas which are discussed under the SCO mechanism in terms of separatism, extremism, et cetera, there can be tangible cooperation. China is purposing this mechanism, the China Central Asia Summit, also to do certain hard security in the area of law enforcement cooperation, cybersecurity cooperation. These are areas, I think, where the two sides both have a compelling interest in working together. And that's why I think it's very important to get to move on the right track with neighbors in these areas.
And I'm assuming that a lot of these countries in the region see China as a much more reliable, trusted partner than the United States.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the United States used to be there at the end of the Cold War and had investments in oil and gas, never quite showed up in the region, only came there episodically when it was of its interest after 9/11, et cetera, and to this day are asking, so what can the US do for us? And the US really doesn't have an answer. While China has jumped with both feet, and is a deep economic partner. And as I said, it's not just two-way trade, it's going to be about investment ties and value addition in these countries, so which will create and engender prosperity there.
All right, we'll leave it there. Sourabh Gupta, thank you.